Hello, today is July 6th, 2024. Today I'm going to post my predictions for this year's presidential election results. I'll probably do Senate and House soon, but we're in a really interesting spot right now. So I thought I wanted to do this last election cycle. I did it. So far, I'm the only person that has gotten every single state right in 2020 that I've seen online. I cannot find anyone else who's got every state right besides me. If anyone wants proof, I would love to share it because I posted it. I posted it. That was great. That was really fun for me. But now we're in a much more complicated election cycle, so I'm not as confident. I think I can do it though. I think it can be really accurate. In 2022, I got every Senate seat right. I got all but Wisconsin's governor seat right as well. So I was on a very good streak last time. I was right about pretty much everything. So I hope I can do that this time. But this year, it's very interesting, and I like to explain why. But first, I'm going to put in the candidates. Now, this alone is controversial. We don't know who's going to be here. So I find this pretty interesting because if Biden drops out, is Harris going to do better or worse? A poll I've seen, she hasn't. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. Uh, when you do the head-to-head polls with Biden and Harris versus Trump, you see usually Harris does just as bad as Biden or very slightly better. Today, a poll came out; she's down 11 to Biden's like 5. Both awful for the but Democrats. But it's just how it's going to be uh, until it gets closer to election day. I imagine it shapes up a little bit. I can't really imagine that 10% of people are going to vote for Robert F. Kennedy, and a lot of those people are Democrats that are voting for him. So here's another thing: putting in this candidate, Donald Trump. Now I don't know who's vice president's going to be. I've seen the short list. It's like Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, and JD Vance, and who fits the Trump uh, personality the best? I definitely say JD Vance because he's definitely not picking someone from a swing state because all those three guys are from states that are definitely going red. You got Florida, Ohio, and I think South Dakota. So it's pretty interesting. Ooh, I accidentally added the color here. Hold on. So I'm assuming it's going to be Trump Vance. That actually doesn't sound that bad either. Um, in the event that Biden does drop out, which he says he won't, but it's also being said that there's private conversations that he doesn't know yet. So it 100% happen. In the event that that happens, I would imagine Harris picks uh, Newsom. Apparently, she already has her team prepping for a run if Biden does decide, and that was shortly after they met on was either yesterday or the day before. Uh, Biden and Harris had a meeting scheduled, and they don't really talk from what I'm aware. I just saw that in the news. I'm like, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, they had to discuss. I don't know if they're discussing the campaign. I would imagine so. That debate, it might not have actually been that bad of a debate for Biden, but the first half of it was, which means all the first impressions look so bad. Biden lost that like 67 to 33%, uh, based on opinion pollsters, but also people who were undecided were kind of skewing towards Biden in certain moments of the debate. Not that that means anything because there's a lot of undecided that still went. To win as a Democrat right now, you kind of have to have like 80% of the undecided vote, which is a large portion of the country. You can imagine Trump feels very comfortable right now. Uh, so you know, I'm just gonna get straight into it because I started stuttering. Stuttering. Okay. So the polls show some crazy stuff. I'm not going to base it completely on polls. I'm going to do what I did in 2020 when I got everything right. I'm going to do like 50. I'm going to base like 70% of my opinion on the polls and the data. Uh, and what I did last time is I went through the consistency of the polls. If I see Biden up 8 in New Jersey, 7 in New Jersey, 12 in New Jersey, and I see Trump up 1 in New Jersey, I'm gonna mostly ignore that poll. Which that was a poll. Yes, that was a poll. That was that was wild. I've also seen Biden only up 4 in Delaware. That's also probably not true. If you're conservative, I understand how you believe that might be true. And I'm going to stay realistic, and I'm just going to come out straight and say this prediction does have Trump winning. He does win this race. It's at least as of right now. I mean, the second debate has to be an absolute blowout, or Biden has to drop out. Something crazy has to happen for Biden to come back from this. And that's one of the discussions they're having is does he think he can win? Because he's also said, even though in the interview he said he won't drop out unless God tells him to, he also said that he'll drop out if he doesn't think he can win this race. That is pretty contradictory of the other statement, but whatever. I'm going to start with the safe Democrat states. California, Maryland, my home state, DC, Vermont. I'm going to say Connecticut. That one could. I should probably explain the margins. Uh, if to classify a state as safe, it would be 15% or more of a victory over your other opponent. So if you won 60 to 20, 60 to 40, I meant, then you would have it as safe because that's 20%. If you won 56 to 44, that's a 12-point win. That's likely. So then, say California here, this would be likely Democrat. Lean would be 7% or 6.99% down to 2%. So if it's anything under 2%, then it's tilt. That's how I do my margins. I know it's a little different from what other people do, but that's just, I think, more comfortable for me to do it like that, and I'm not gonna change the way I do it for other people. I'm also gonna say Massachusetts and Rhode Island probably gonna be around 15%. Massachusetts, I expect Biden to win it by like 28%. He won it by like 33 or something last time, 34. And then we get into other safe states, Hawaii. There's also another poll where Biden's only up like 7 in Hawaii. He won it by 30 last time. If the country is really shifting 20 points in each direction, like to the Republican direction, I mean, this wouldn't make sense. Like, I think what these pollsters have done with their adjustments is they've realized for like the last 10 years all of their polls have skewed more to the left than what the final result would have been. I think they've overcompensated a little bit this time. Like they did in 2022, the polls were relatively accurate. The only weird kind of fluke pollsters that happened last year was like Tim Kaine winning in Ohio. Even then, he only lost by what, 4%, 6%. Uh, I think Nevada might have been a little skewed. Usually Nevada's polls come out a lot more red than they are, so that's a little different from the rest of the country too. Uh, yeah. All right, and the next and only other safe state I'm gonna put down. Actually, I'm gonna put two more safe states: New York and Washington. New York also has a lot of weird polls this year where it's single digits. Uh, if there's going to be one state that was 100% going to be safe Democrat against Donald Trump, I would believe it would be New York. I mean, you ignore the obvious big three like Vermont, Maryland, and California. If there's going to be another state that's usually around 20 or less points that's going to be safe Democrat, it's going to be New York. They they just don't like Trump. It's a historic issue with New York. Oregon, you could argue for that. I wouldn't personally. No, New Jersey, you could also argue it would be safe. I think the most of the polls have a consistency of it being like I'm gonna say it's gonna be like a 13% Trump win. I'll move these to likely now. And Delaware, uh, I don't think I even need to explain that to be honest. Also, Illinois could 100% be 15% or more, but as of right now, I'm thinking a 12% win for Biden here. So then we got all the safe Republican states, and yes, there's a lot more of them. There's Nebraska at large, Nebraska's first district, Nebraska's third district, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Probably Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, definitely Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri. I'm gonna do a couple more in a second. I just want to explain some of these. Yeah, well, Mississippi's always usually on the line of being under 15%. Again, it's probably going to be like a 20% win for Trump as of right now. He's up like, I think he's going to win the popular vote by like 3%. That's what it's looking like. I mean, I'm seeing polls where Trump's up 8%. He's not up 8% nationally. I shouldn't have to explain that. That just people are too, what's the word for this? Dedicated to their side of politics that they won't even switch for the other candidate. I think there's a lot of people who will say they might vote for the other candidate, but then don't actually end up doing it. Like just in 2016, when a lot of people said they were going to vote Hillary and she had a horrible turnout. All right, the next safe state I'm going to do is Iowa. We're at that point. Iowa is a safe Republican state. We've been at that point since like 2018, to be honest, maybe 2016, when it got taken back presidentially by Trump for the Republicans. And a lot of people aren't going to like. I'll put South Carolina as safe Republican. I usually put it at likely. Again, we're just in a weird situation. I'm going to put it as safe. And now here's where people get probably going to get pissy with me. Even though I have Trump winning, I have Kansas as likely. It was technically likely in 2020. That doesn't mean anything. Obviously, there's a Democrat governor here. They had that abortion vote in 2022, and I think that's going to be the only actual good reason that it stays likely is because Kansas is focused on more of the moderate Republican kind of rules. It's the same with with like Missouri and stuff, but Missouri's just a few more points red. And it's also, Kansas since 2020 has shifted like 20% blue. Missouri's shifted like 15-20% red. They're kind of moving the opposite of each other. Think of what Missouri used to be 20 years ago, a toss up. That's Kansas in like 10 years from now. Again, I know as a Republican, like if you're a Republican, people are going to think that sounds so stupid. I'm sorry if you don't agree with that. I'll give them Maine second as safe as well. I think that's going to have pretty good turnout for Trump because they know that they aren't. They know they're a red part of the state, but they don't know that they're going to win there. By that I mean they're going to get better turnout. I keep stuttering. I haven't done one of these in a while, like 2 years literally. Um, now Ohio, likely Republican. I think that's going to be around 12% Republican. The only way it goes lean is if the turnout for Sherrod Brown. I do think Sherrod Brown's going to win. Uh, if the turnout for Sherrod Brown is pretty high, chances are a lot of those voters might vote for either independent, which will take votes away from Trump, or vote for Biden, which also takes votes away from Trump. Not enough to like change the state's result, but enough to make it a couple points closer than what I think it might be. I think if it does go lean, it's probably going to be like 6%. I don't see it going any less than 5%. That'd be if in the event that Biden only loses Ohio by 4%, he probably wins the entire Rust Belt. Georgia, Arizona gets close in Texas. That's not going to happen. Texas, I'm going to have Trump winning by like 8% here. It's also one of those generally blue shifting states. Uh, since like 20 years ago, he's been like 40% Republican. Then I'd say 2008 is when people realized Texas could be blue. And I say that because of just how much it changed from 2004 to 2008. Uh, Democrats started getting that Latino vote. Now, it's not going to be as much. Obviously, there's a lot of issues in Texas that skew towards the Republican kind of preference on these issues. So a lot of people will be more inclined to vote Republican because they're like all these border issues, like Texas being thinks they're directly affected. I say thinks as in they're not. They are affected by immigration in one way or another. I'm not going to get into it because I think immigration really isn't as big of an issue as it's coming out to be. I also think Texas is still going to stand strong with turnout. and that's why Biden won't lose it by like 20% or anything. I think he's going to lose it by 8. I think worst case scenario, he loses it by like 12 as well. I just don't see that happening. I forgot to switch Ohio back to likely, my bad. Next likely state, Florida. It could be safe, to be honest. Trump only won here by 3%, though. I also expect him to win here by like 9%, maybe up to 13. I don't think he's going to make it a safe race, but DeSantis kind of led the way. I think he even flipped Miami-Dade. Florida is a Republican state now. It's just how it is. Like Iowa and Ohio, Trump kind of took those three with him, and then they're not coming back. Uh, and I see a lot of, this might be another reason Democrats are badly affected in elections sometimes, is because they don't spend their money properly. They spend, I understand for Sherrod Brown's race, but they'll spend money on advertising Joe Biden in Ohio. They'll spend like 30 million a month. I know that's not the actual number. I'm just saying they spend a lot of their money focused in Iowa, Ohio, and Florida. And I get at this point, they might feel like they need to take Hail Marys, but there is an easy path for Biden to win. Not easy, but there's a clear path for Biden to win, and I'll show that after I'm done with this. I'll also show how I think Harris would do. The next likely Republican place I'll do is Montana. Same reason for Ohio. I think they have a Democrat senator that's more moderate and will get a lot of good turnout despite the situation of the political climate, all that crap. I know I sound like a nerd, but I do think Montana will have decent turnout for Democrats as opposed to most years. That's why in 2018, Democrats won that Senate seat. 2012, I think. How long has that seat been Democrat? I think it's going to be Democrat for like 18 years now, 12 years at least. I think because it went blue in 2012. I think I could be entirely wrong. Uh, I haven't brushed up on my Montana history in a while. Sue me. In Utah is really interesting because it's also another one of those really fast blue shifting states that really no one's ever going to think is going to turn blue until it actually does. So I say, actually, this isn't the last. Sorry, this is not the last likely Republican. I still got Alaska to go, but I'll explain that in a second too. Utah again, more moderate. They're probably because of the Mormons, to be honest. Like it is a big chunk of their population. I know there's like jokes like, oh, it's because they're Mormon. No, it actually is. That's why. And Biden originally a couple months ago was polling like 7%, 6% down. He's probably going to end up losing it by like 13%. I think Donald Trump won it by 20. I think it was something like that. Obviously, the governor and the Senate races are different here uh, than the presidentially. Obviously, Donald Trump does not have. I think he was even disapproved of when he left office. Like he had negative like 7 approval in Utah. Again, don't fact check it. I could be a little wrong there. I can tell you for a fact though it was not as good as it was in like Wyoming and Mississippi and West Virginia and Kentucky. I think West Virginia was one of the only states that actually approved of him at that point. And now we'll do. Oh yeah, Alaska. Alaska again, another one of those states, and I would show, but I don't know how to show that right now. Let me just pull up. Uh, I know I don't know why I'm pulling up the results. I know how it was. It was like 40 something points in 2000, 2004. Then it was like 25% in 2008. Again, those are generic guesses. I know in 2016 it was around a 14-point win or a 12-point win. And I know that Biden, I think, only lost Alaska by 10.1% in 2020. And then Democrats flipped their House seat, their full state House seat. There was only one seat in Alaska, so statewide result. And again, that's probably because of the voting system that they do. But that still shows that, Democrats have had a decent time trying to flip Alaska. And obviously all their that didn't make sense. Oh man, I'm starting to sound like Biden. But yeah, Lisa Murkowski, one of the most moderate Republicans, I think, in the Senate, I believe. Oh, I know that. Maybe Deb Fisher, she's still in Nebraska. I can't remember. I think who else is pretty moderate in the Senate? Oh, Mitt Romney, obviously. That's the big reason why Utah goes likely here. Trying to think of a better example. Lindsey Graham, but he doesn't show that he's moderate, so that doesn't really count. Okay, all right, I'll just move on. Alaska might be, I think it's going to be around 13%. I think this is going to be the only year since 2004 that Alaska shifts. Actually, that's not true either, because technically in 2012 to 2016 it shifted a few points red because of how good of an election night Trump had. But in general, it's moved a lot. It's I think since 2000, Alaska has been the state that's moved to the left the most out of any other state. All right, Colorado likely Democrat. I This shouldn't be hard to explain. It went 13 and a half points for Biden in 2020. Easily could have been safe. Its Senate and governor race were safe in 2022. It's actually the only year that. Please tell me it's Michael Bennett. I think Michael Bennett is the. I I haven't paid attention to some of these names in a while. I Because Congress hasn't really done anything since Republicans won the House. A lot of stalling, and uh, I'm not going to get into that either. I said this like 20 times, and I keep getting into it. New Mexico, I'm going to say lean. I think it's going to be like 6.7%, something like that, as of right now. Again, I'm going to start doing these every other week or so, like I did last time. I think last time I did it like every 3 days. So it depends on how much I get emotionally involved in this election. Uh, Again, I do think Biden barely wins New Mexico here. And another interesting state, Virginia. I think Biden wins here by around 6% as well. He won here by 10.1%. I hope that was the exact amount in 2020. I don't have notes down here. I'm going off of my memory. I have pretty good memory of like the margins. I mean, almost perfect memory from 2020, great memory from 2022. Uh, I just turned 18, so this is I've been doing. I predicted the election correct when I was 15 or 14 years old in 2020, when the professionals didn't. So I don't have as much memory of the older results, like 2012, 2008. I was 2 years old in 2008. Um, so you kind of think here, oh, Biden has a shot. Then you start looking at polls. Biden doesn't win Nevada. I know, like I said, every year Biden does. No, Democrats have really bad polls in Nevada, and then they end up barely pulling it off. That's what they did in 2022. And then that governor seat flipped. And after that, the candidate that lost in the Senate, I think Laxalt or something, all of a sudden, he's running again, I believe, and I think he's a better following this time. I also do think that Nevada is going to grow around 4% Republican here. Again, if it's under 5 points at this point, Biden could totally come back and win Nevada by like 2 or 3%. Don't cross that out yet. I'm obviously going to keep updating this. We don't know what's going to happen. He could dominate in the next debate. He could pass some big legislature somehow. He could drop out and Harris comes in, and I think Harris is probably a stronger candidate at this point. I think a lot of people are overreacting, so I do see uh, Trump winning Nevada here. I see him barely pulling off Arizona, and I know Arizona. I'm going to say 2.2%. That's my guess. I know Arizona finally flipped for Democrats in 2020, and I think it will be back to Democrats in 2028, especially if Trump wins, because what we've seen since 2016. I mean, historically too. Trump won, then there was a blue wave, then Biden won, then there was a quote unquote red wave, then Trump wins probably here, and then there's probably going to be a blue wave. So it just happens back and forth and back and forth. And this is going to be one of the last times you guys are going to see Arizona go red in the next like 20 years, in my opinion, presidentially, because I think that there's just a lot of young, stubborn voters, and I think people are going to get a lot more easily fed up with Trump. I don't want to. I'm trying not to criticize him because I don't want people to think like, oh, well, he's just biased towards Biden or whatever. At this point, you know, You could say that, but I think my predictions are generally accurate. I was pretty good with them in 2020, like I said. I'm going to move on to the next state because I'm starting to restate stuff I've already said. North Carolina, 3%, 4% to Trump here, 4.4%. We'll do that. I think it's just a generally uh, that's a state that's worth campaigning in for Biden here, especially Harris. If she wins, she has 9%. She's 11% better with black female voters, and she's 9% better with undecided voters. That is a huge margin, but also, again, she also does worse than some other groups. Probably white people, definitely. I would imagine. Just I can't imagine so many old white people voting for Harris as much as there were in 2020. I also think this is going to be a low turnout year. Uh, that's another reason I expect Trump to win a lot of these states. Now, it's still technically this is still possible for Biden to win here, and I think if he does win the election, it involves winning at least Minnesota, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But I'm gonna do the rest of the blue states that I think Biden's gonna win, and then I'll do the red parts. Actually, I'm gonna move Nebraska second to lean. I forgot I didn't put that one down. Biden won here by 7%. I'm gonna put it as tilt actually. I think it would be really funny if the only reason Trump lost here in 2020 was because of that rally he had like 2 weeks before the election in Omaha, where they didn't send buses back. I think they brought people with buses to the rallies, and then people had like hypothermia at night or whatever. I just think it'd be pretty funny if that was why he lost last time. Uh, okay, it doesn't sound that funny. It's funny though. I'm gonna do Biden wins Minnesota by like 4 or 5%. He won here by 7 points last time. The state hasn't gone red since before Ronald Reagan. I think Nixon was the last Republican to win Minnesota. Something like that. I know it didn't go blue for Reagan, so that's pretty. That like in those historic landslides, win 49 states, Minnesota still goes blue. Again, that's 40 years ago, but that is shown to be a continuing thing. Trump was very close to winning here in 2016. I think he only won it by 1.5%, something like that. So he 100% could have won in 2016, 2016, I meant. His second time he ran for election. He ran for president in 2000, the year 2000 as well. Uh, the next Democrat state, I'm going to give Biden Michigan. I think it's another one of those states that just has so many good Democrats on the ballot for their other elections that it's just going to look better. If that does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for people. Like obviously you have Slotkin for Senate. She was like in an R+4 Republican district and won it by like 10%. That's how much people like her. Uh, in Michigan, she is still winning there in right now by like 4 or 5%, occasionally more. I think Biden wins Michigan. I also think Biden wins New Hampshire by like 5%. I've seen a poll or two where Trump wins here, but I've seen mostly polls where where Biden wins here by around that margin. And again, consistency is key. Don't pay attention to the fluke polls like Biden winning Georgia by 10 points. He's not going to win Georgia by 10 points. He is going to probably win it by like I don't think he wins it by any more than three. It's definitely possible. He's up here by 5.5% as of today. Two good polls for Biden came out today. He was only down 1 and 2%. That's within margin of error. That's enough to overcome, especially if the polls this year are leaning more to the right than they actually are. I don't think they're leaning more to the right this year enough to sway an election unexpectedly, but it's possible, I guess. Uh, you know what? I'm gonna say just to visually make it uh, more appealing that Georgia goes tilt. I'm gonna say 1.9% Trump will win here by due to lack of turnout. I don't think there's a lack of Democrats in Georgia or a lack of voters that will come out. I think it's a lack of Biden supporters. And again, I do think in 2028, it's actually going to be really fun to do the 2028 prediction, but that will entirely depend on who wins this election. I'll probably do that middle of November. I'll do like, okay, well, if Biden win, if Trump wins in 2024, maybe Texas goes blue in 2028. That probably won't happen yet. But yeah, Georgia, Arizona, both those two should definitely flip back if Trump wins. It's just kind of how it goes. Again, with the flip flop thing, like I said earlier. Okay, now we're looking at Biden's only. No, he doesn't have a chance here. Trump's at 269, which means the Senate. No, which means the House would vote to keep Trump. Actually, there is a couple of Republicans who do not like Trump, but there's also a lot of you know what? It'd be kind of interesting if they picked Robert F. Kennedy. I shouldn't be proposing these ideas. That would be awful. I think both sides can agree Robert F. Kennedy might be, in my opinion, he's the worst of all three. That could be stupid opinion. Tell me whatever. I don't care. Uh, Maine at large and Maine's first, likely and lean. Again, it's just a Democrat state that's having a rough time. It's just generally like that. So you see, Biden already has a decent shot. If he's only down in like Georgia, Arizona, Nevada by a few points, then who knows? He could win this election. But I also have him losing Wisconsin by a few points, despite. Oh my God! I cannot remember the Wisconsin senator. Is it Tammy Baldwin? Please tell me it's Tammy Baldwin. It better be because otherwise my memory is going really bad. I think it's Tammy Baldwin here. Again, she's in one of those quote unquote moderate Democrats. I think that the turnout with her has to be really high for Biden to win in Wisconsin. Trump won here, I believe, by around the same amount Biden did. Uh, so it really could go either way. I've had Wisconsin going red since 2021 before the Afghanistan stuff. I just figured, if one of these three Rust Belt states is going to shift, uh, like entirely, like completely switch parties. I know Wisconsin has like a liberal Supreme Court now. They just elected a Democrat governor. I think they have a Democrat state senate. They have, it looks better on paper for them than it actually is. But you got Ron Johnson who just won in 2022 by a couple of percentage points, which is more than Trump won. You got Trump won here as well. Wisconsin, even under Obama, wasn't. It was kind of the closest out of these four states: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Those are the four states that I think will be Republican in like 2028, 2032. I don't think Minnesota goes red in 2032. I don't, and these are really confusing states because we all thought after 2016, none of these states would go blue again, and then they did. And then they did in 2018 as well. They did mostly in 2022. Is there a stall in the shift? Is the shift reversing? I have no idea. I do have one more idea. Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. I think that might only be because Biden's from here. That makes sense. I think it'd be like negative home field advantage. I hope that also makes sense to some people. I think Biden loses here by less than a percentage point. Again, he only needs to win like Nebraska's second. If he wins these tilt states, he wins. He would only need to do 1% better to get 276 here. If Biden wins like this, there's going to be a lot of calls for fraud or whatever because it does look bad, at least as of right now. If the election was held today and he won like this, I still think this is possible. He's only down one in Georgia as of today, off of one of the polls. Again, I'm not going to go off of one poll, like I said, but hypothetically, if he was down there like 1 point, if he was down in Pennsylvania 1 point, I see him up every like three polls in Pennsylvania, so he could be up in Pennsylvania. I think he's down here. You think he's down in Pennsylvania by like 2%. Again, within margin of error averages. Wisconsin, I think it might be like 3.8%. That's probably more likely to be. I think the most likely state to flip is Wisconsin. I hope some people understand that. I guess I don't know. I've done a whole lot of yapping. This is my final prediction for. Oh, let me move this down. This is my final prediction for Biden Harris versus Trump Vance. Uh, Take a look at it. This is probably gonna be my only one for the next like month, and then I'll do it like every week or two. I might post a Senate prediction. I think it's pretty self-explanatory with the Senate. The Senate, I think only a couple flips happen. I think Montana, as of right now, flips red. West Virginia Manchin didn't even run for re-election, so I think that flips red, and that alone is enough for Republicans to win the Senate here. I do think Democrats hold on to every Rust Belt state, though, including Ohio. I think Sherrod Brown wins in Ohio. I think they will win. Is it Gallagher or Gallagher in Arizona? Sorry if I butchered one of those. I do think we're up by quite a bit in Nevada. Senate race, every Senate poll right now, we're up like five with Rosen. And then you got Georgia doesn't have a Senate race until like until like 2 years from now. So Democrats are lucky they got the Georgia special election because otherwise there'd be a Georgia election this year for the Senate and they would probably lose that one too, especially if it was Ossoff. Ossoff, I feel like might not win re-election. Warnock should. Uh, and I think that's not all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my prediction if Harris goes in. I think if Harris, I think Harris's path to victory is the same as Biden's. It's really. I'm gonna move these to safe just so it looks more appealing here. Let me just do this real quick. Sorry. There we go. This is Harris's shot at winning. This is Biden's shot at winning. Uh, the only other scenario where I see Biden winning is if instead of Georgia, or if he loses, like he could definitely lose Pennsylvania and then win like Arizona and Nevada, or he could lose Arizona, win Wisconsin. There's multiple things he has to do here, but he has to at least win three of these main five states this year. I think it's going to come to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. That's 62 electoral votes. That Oh wait, that'd be pretty interesting if we got the same election map. I just realized that would be the same one. Yeah, Biden's definitely not flipping anything in his favor. Uh, the only thing that's going to happen is Republicans are going to flip a couple states. I don't know how much, but I think the worst case scenario, okay, just for fun, let's do the the Democrat blowout scenario. Say Trump absolutely blunders the second debate. Say they even do their golf match and Biden won the golf match. Whatever crazy stuff would happen that looks bad. Say JD Vance continues to look like a moron. I think he might be one of the. Yeah, I don't even think Republicans like him, right? He might praise Trump a lot. Like that, I don't think that's enough to win the support entirely. Because I don't think he's a smart person. I he barely won in Ohio when the governor won by like 25%. Then again, it was against Ryan, he was a great candidate. So I don't know. But under the scenario where Biden wins in a blowout, I think the most he could possibly win by in an alternate universe is flipping Ohio, North Carolina, and holding everything. He's not going to win Texas, and even in his blowout. Uh, Again, Trump could win Ohio, North Carolina, but he could flip one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. I think this is Biden. This is Trump's best case scenario. I thought it was really funny. The only reason I decided to do this today is because yesterday I saw someone. It's not propaganda or anything, uh, but it felt like it. There was a Republican election person or election predictionist, whatever you want to call them, predictor, and they were so far gone into the rabbit hole of polls that they had New Jersey going red. If you're a Republican and think New Jersey is going red this year because of a single poll that had Trump up by less than 1%, you shouldn't even be watching these because that doesn't make sense. It's not going to. You know what? Okay, you know what? I'll even keep this on the internet if it does happen because I'll feel really stupid and silly if that does happen. New Jersey, it's one of those more moderate Democrat states as well. So I could see them making a leap for a moderate Republican in like 2028, 2032 because of. I think Hillary did a lot of damage to the safe Democrat states. I think Hillary did a lot of damage to Illinois and New Jersey Democrats and Oregon and Washington. Those are like kind of these safe Democrat states that have been looking kind of closer in recent years. Uh, I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say. I think that was more than enough to say. I think someone's going to skip to the end and think this is my final result. So I'm going to go and put the election results back here, the one that I had predicted, just so it doesn't, someone doesn't skip to the end and see, oh my God, really? You know, if that makes sense. Not Georgia. Georgia, so interesting. Georgia. Okay, is this it? Okay, we'll go with this. This is the final frame. A lot of people are going to go to the last 10 seconds, and I'm going to say goodbye. I did a lot of yapping. If someone sat through this whole thing, that's amazing. Because I did a lot of talking. My throat actually hurts now. So, goodbye.